There we go. I think we're good now. Great. Well, that was exciting watching everyone come in. A lot of familiar faces and clients, candidates, and friends who have logged in. And I want to thank you and welcome to the Board Leadership Forum, where we want to talk about boards and profitability. We really want to talk about generating revenue, generating profits, generating dividends. And I want to pay special thanks to our partner, Hakama, the Institute of Governance, and the gold standard for board practices, board best practices across the region and globally. I'm your host, Shane Phillips from the Phillips Group. Our company is a family business as well that was founded in 1984 in Canada, and we have been placing board members and CEOs since 1984, so almost 40 years. If you will. So we have a great lineup today. Our session is going to be from 3 p.m. to 5 p.m. And our closer is the amazing story, one of my favorite, the Invest story, which has delivered double or triple digit growth almost every single year. So we have Sanjay Quatra talking there. And our middle session is also a firecracker. We have V. Shankar, CEO and co-founder of Gateway Partners, who is really going to give us some good investment insights as well. He's leading a 14 billion AUMs in assets under management investment company. And that his presentation will be complemented by Mr. Ramzi Kanan, who's currently the chairman of UBS Bank in Saudi Arabia. We're all interested to know what's happening in Saudi. And Anis Sultan, who's a board member with WJ Towel, the oldest distribution relationships for Unilever and Nestle in the world, spanning over 150 years. And our opening session, the one we're just about to do now, is featuring one of our favorite homegrown success stories, Dubai success stories. A man who has been known for putting his competition to sleep and gives his customers a dreamy experience every time they come into his office. He's leading a family business that was forged in the last century. He succeeded his father as MD and CEO in 1999 and now has grown the business to be a market leader in the GCC, underscored by presence in 23 additional countries. And he's also proudly promoted and spearheaded the manufacturing sector in UAE, proudly promotes the trademark made in UAE. He holds a Bachelor of Science from University of Missouri, Kansas, and an MBA from the American University in Dubai. Please welcome Mr. Hassan Al Hazim.
Thank you, Shane. It's so kind of you. It's an honor to join the forum.
Thank you. Yeah, it's exciting to have you here, and I look forward to talking about your business, which is, sorry, I didn't think I mentioned it there in the lead up in the suspense. He's leading Intercoil, which manufactures, for example, if you ever slip in a Jumeirah hotel, Jumeirah Beach Hotel or any of the hotels, his mattresses are the mattresses you're sleeping on. So really a market leader in his sector. Our second speaker is a man some called the godfather of governance. He's championed the evolution and development of corporate governance across the Gulf, and he himself has chaired several boards, such as executive chairman of Egypt Post, deputy executive director of Egyptian Banking Institute, executive director of the Egyptian Institute of Directors, and Institute of Corporate Governance in Egypt and the Arab region, board member of Egyptian Resorts Company, board member of Sal Hashish, Egypt Reinsurance, Miser Life Insurance, Suez Canal for Technology, Thebes International, Miser Connect Cement, sorry, I think I destroyed the name of that one, and many more board positions. So he's a bona fide, veritable board member and also expert in corporate governance. And is advising and providing his expertise to the biggest boards across the Gulf. Please welcome Dr. Ashraf Gamaldeen.
Thank you so much, Shane. Thank you, everyone. I hope this will be a very interactive session and that we'll be discussing together. And we will be happy to, answer any questions or receive your comments and respond to it. Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone.
And our third speaker is a man who's really been part of the fabric of the UAE's digital growth and a lot of the regulations, policies, systems that are being put across. He's a member of the board of the UAE Ministry of Climate Change and Environment. He's a board member with the Middle East Energy. He's a board member with MENA Power Projects. And he's a board member with the MIT Sloan CIO Council. And he's also a board member for one of the most famous groups here in Dubai, a pillar of the business community. He's a board member with Al Kaabi Group and an advisor to the chairman of the group. For those of you, I don't know how anyone wouldn't know Al Kaabi Group, but just in case, they're co-founders of several very well entities that we use every day, such as Etisalat, and founder of the first local bank, Emirates NBD, as well as DIWA. We get the bill every month, so we have to know that one. Siwa and Commercial Bank of Dubai, Dubai Insurance, and Pepsi in the country. His prior life, before becoming a board member, mover, and shaker that he is, he was a banker. Well, we won't hold that against him. Please welcome Mr. Maher Al Kaabi to the panel. Maher, I think you're a lot of people. Yeah, so feel free to record this if you'd like.
Yes.
There we go.
No,
Here he
thank
is.
you very much. Yes, now I'm okay, able to speak. Thank you very much, Shane. Lovely to be here. Let's look for a good panel, inshallah.
Thank you. So let's just start with Mr. Hassan Al Hazim, the Intercoil story. Can you tell us a little bit about how it started, where it's gone, and where it's going now? Oh, you're muted. Technology is great when it works. I think we'll get there, but
Good?
there we go.
Okay. So the company was founded in Dubai in 1974. The company is as old as I am, as a first polyethylene foam manufacturing company in the UAE, and then diversified into furniture and mattresses and bedroom furniture. So we have 3 manufacturing units, 2 in the UAE, 1 in Dubai, 1 in Ras Al Khaimah, and we have a factory in Saudi Arabia. So we manufacture foam mattresses, bedroom furniture, vertically integrated. We have our own brand, which is Intercoil, and I'm proud that it's a homegrown brand. And then we have 2 American brands, Simmons and Therapeutic, and we're the licensee for these brands in the region. Sometimes people think that Intercoil is an international brand, and we're the licensee of that brand, and that makes me proud that we have built the brand of Intercoil to the extent that it's perceived as an international brand. We have B2B and B2C. Our B2B business is mainly to furniture retailers. So we supply companies like Home Center, Marina, Crate & Barrel, those companies. And then we supply hotels and other specialty stores. So, as you mentioned earlier, Jumeirah Group, Four Seasons, and other renowned brands in the hospitality industry. I've been managing the business since 1999, so it's almost 25 years. After I graduated, I did my MBA while I was working in Commercial Bank of Dubai. So it was, 4 years I was in banking, and then joined the family business.
Great. Were you guys were at the you guys weren't at Commercial Bank at Dubai at the same time, you and Maher, were you?
I'm not sure. I think I'm older than Maher. I was from 95 to 99.
No, I was not in Commercial Bank of Dubai. I was at Citibank for about 15 years, and then I moved to Dubai Bank, then Emirates NBD.
Oh, wow. Okay. So we didn't cross paths, unfortunately.
So I worked for 28 years in the banking, so I'm not sure how old are you, but I'm actually in 50s.
I'm turning 50 in a few months.
Okay.
Great. So Hassan, you took over in 99, or I think you were after, and I guess that was a challenging moment because there was, I guess you have a huge family, right?
Yeah, so I think I'm going to share my experience. I'm very open to sharing experiences. I'm a member of EO Entrepreneurs Organization. I was before the YPO. I was, on global boards of EO and YPO. So I'm very open-minded about sharing experiences. In our case, my father was very hands-on in the business till the day he passed away. He had 16 sons and daughters and 3 branches. So my father had 3 wives, and so you can say there were 3 groups. two groups were based in Kuwait, where I'm originally from, and one group we are the Dubai branch, you can say. So the complication is, prior to my father passing away, there wasn't a formal governance process. I mean, it was, the older brothers were involved in the business. I joined the family business like only a year and a half or so before he passed away, but there wasn't a formal, board of directors with non-executive board members or non-executive shareholders. So, it was mainly the older sons and him. So at the time he passed away, we decided to form a board which represents all the shareholders, and which was basically the five sons and one of the brother-in-laws, because my sister at that time has given him power of attorney. So that was the start of governance, you can say, after my father passed away, which was mainly a board that involved members who were already actively managing the businesses, some of the companies we own, whether in Kuwait or Saudi or the UAE. And one of my brothers, for example, was not involved in the business. So he is a board member, but not in any way involved in the business. And then we had a brother-in-law who was representing his wife, who's one of the shareholders. That worked for some time, I think for 7 years, 7 or 8 years. And during this period, it evolved in terms of accountability and governance. There were teams in charge of real estate, a team in charge of manufacturing, like two of the board members, and so on and so forth. But in 7 years, it was obvious that there was no alignment in terms of expectations, nor in terms of performance. So some of the members were performing better than the others. So therefore, the companies that were performing better, it didn't seem to be a fair structure, because some of the members had better profitability, and therefore when you bring in the profits to the pool for everybody, there was that kind of sense of unfairness. And in any case, since there was also a big gap in terms of generational gap, I'm the youngest in the family, and my oldest brother is like 25 years older than I. There is a gap in terms of expectations, in terms of vision, and in terms of where we want the group to go. And therefore, that was the start of a mutual agreement between us to separate, to swap shares and separate the estate according to the three groups. So the governance that we have formed, or the board that we have formed post my father passed away, was temporary or for a certain period successful. But eventually we found that the best way going forward is to maintain the family relationship, but separate as business partners and split the assets amongst us based on the region, geography, whatever, who was managing what, and so on and so forth. So this was the first phase of my experience in terms of a family business with a board. I can go to the next phase, but I'll first ask you, Shane, if you have any questions on.
I just say, I think this is where Dr. Ashraf comes in. I guess this is where, everything is going well, but then when the main person at the driving seat is gone, then this is where the corporate governance gets its mettle tested. Or Dr. Ashraf, what's your experience in this type of moment?
Well, yeah, thank you so much. Actually, this is really something that we have seen a lot, and the story that Mr. Hassan mentioned now is happier than other stories that we have heard and have seen in different families. Now, one of the issues which is very common is simply that when the patriarch established the company, he would think that I can manage it with my sons and daughters and everything. And he might think that everything is under control, and I have a system and everyone is doing something different, so things are stable. What a lot of people don't realize is simply that this is a situation where the founder is alive, because, you know, he is usually in control and people respect him. And we are a very respectful culture in nature. So we are not really, we don't like other cultures challenge our fathers or something. We will never do that. So we always respect. But once he is absent, he is not around, then you start to have lots of issues happening. And therefore, the whole idea of having, you know, the family members as the shareholders, as the board of directors is very problematic, because what you have is, number one, you lose lines of good governance. For example, like you know, usually you have the shareholders who elect people who have experience as board members, and they hold them accountable for whatever happens. And then you have management that you can hold accountable as well. But once you have the family, they are in the three positions. They are the shareholders, the board, as well as the management. That's where you have lots of issues happening. And we really always advise people to differentiate between having good governance for the companies. So sometimes you do have a company's good governance, but then good governance for the family as well. And this is the more mature stage. So we always say that, you know, when things are good, when the founder is alive, or at least maybe the second generation after him is alive, that's where they should come together and agree on the system for the companies. So as Hassan say, we might agree that, you know what, we swap shares and every part of the family will own something, or we say, let's have professional governance in which we as family agree on, you know, we are shareholders and we choose professional people to be on the board. Maybe one of us will be, or two of us will be there as well, and then how to select the management. That's all these decisions. They have to be made as early as possible. The later you wait for these decisions to happen, the more problems you'll face. Because at the beginning, it was only the father. And then you start to have the three wives and their children. And then you start to have lots of grandsons. You have like 45 people. And there is no way you can get agreement. So that's why we say, please think about these things before they do happen to you. And I have something which I say to lots of family founders who say, you know, everything is under control. I always say, you know what? It is like death. You think that somebody else will die, but not me. So you think that all the problems that family businesses are facing will not happen in your family business. It will. I mean, it's a matter of time. So the key thing is, and it's really quite important, communication and talking as a family is quite important to agree together on a system. That system, whatever it is, but we have to agree on it. And that has to be reflected after this into, you know, agreements and policies which are binding for people, because non-binding gentleman agreement do not work in reality. You start to go to court, and we have seen this a lot in the region. I don't want to take too long out of the time now, but at this stage, I think what Mr. Hassan told is a very happy story as compared to other families, where they agreed that we keep the family together by separating the ownership, which is excellent. So every branch of the family took ownership. So again, for Mr. Hassan, for the time being, it's working. In the long term, he will have to think of the same issues, because that will happen again. So he will need to fix it, make sure that it doesn't happen to his own family after taking off with his own company in Dubai. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Ashraf. So I think we've heard of the actual family member. Now we have the expert best practices. And now we have Maher Al Kaabi. Maher, you're actually an independent. So you're not a member of the Al Serkal family. You know, what do you see your role in all of this, and what's your insight on that?
If I just continue on the story of what is happening for people to know the perspective of family offices and how generation actually transition. If you look at the global stats, first of all, the second generation, only 40% transition to 40% of the second generation. The third generation is only 16%. So you've got a loss of value of GDP of 84%. In UAE, that percentage is 10%. So it's really staggering. And now family businesses is anything between 60 to 90% of any country's GDP. So whatever, you know, Ashraf has mentioned and Hassan has mentioned, these are key things of fabric of making it happen. Now, I put in an acronym called SDGs, being an independent board member, and start with the selection process. So if the family businesses need to realize that, you know, and they work differently than corporates, they're definitely more emotional in what they want to do, which is a good thing to be honest with you. But then, you know, the biggest piece which is missing, what Ashraf talked about, is the governance. But before the governance, you need to understand, how do we make sure that we have the selection process of the independent board members to be there, how they are aligned with values? And the reason I mentioned this, because when I speak to a lot of people who are actually independent board members, they don't work with the same energy or the same alignment when they were working their corporate lives. And when I speak to them in confidence, they say, look, we kind of worked for 20, 30 years for a very long time. This is our retirement period. So a reverse migration from a corporate to a family business, it's a challenge by itself. So start with the selection process. Then I as I said, SDG, so start with the D. Our role is to provide that sense of direction. And I always say the independent board members, they work as a sponge and as a glue. So you become a sponge when the conflict happens, you're actually trying to bring people together. So this is where you bring your sponge role. But at the same time, you need to make sure that you mend the relationship by working and taking the glue relationship to you, actually make sure all the family people are talking together. The independent board member has an added advantage vis-a-vis the others, because their decisions are unbiased. So they know there is no interest and there's no favoritism between one family member and another family member. So they're more able to listen to them. So apart from providing a sense of direction of a long-term what companies need to do, you need to make sure that we instill a governance, which is very, very important and critical in a family business. Seldomly what happens, most of the time, that a favoritism or a personal things will come into the play. So our job as an independent board member becomes is how do we look and align this with the long-term vision that the company has today? If that is not aligned with it, then everybody comes to the same line. So you need to reduce the derailing, which happens constantly all the time. So putting that governance was very important. For us to make the constitution, we did not do it ourselves, because you could download the 400-page of constitution and make it happen. So what we did, we sat with the older board members, we made them write the constitution. And we said, look, we will have a placeholder and we will not fill up everything together. We will take a baby step on what we think is correct today. And we keep on revisiting the constitution every year. It will be a second version, a third version, and so forth for you to expand on it. And the other thing which is very important is we need to drive what culture every family business wants to do. So whatever I'm saying is generally speaking, but there should be some bespoke solution from every family business to another family business, because they're different. So one of the things we did is, okay, let's understand the culture. So we first of all married the culture within the whole thing by doing what? By actually going to the senior management team meeting. We took them actually off to offsite and actually asked them, what do you think the culture should be? And then married that culture along with the corporate bowl, and that's what made it happen. And today now we live that culture. So we made the transformation to that things. And then we went back again, had an offsite meeting as well, which need to be done is, what is it that we want to do? What are the challenges we have? How do we diversify? And then you take it off from there. And so far you play that role. Of course, there's so many other things that we need to talk about, but this is the gist of what we need to do.
Great. Well, just one other thing. I mean, I would say with you that the family offices have the longevity and the sustainability. As an executive search consultant, I get this dialogue a lot where senior executives from multinationals will say, they cite the statistic that, hey, by the third generation, we tend to see some turbulence. But just to temper that, McKinsey's released a report that says that currently they believe, I'm not necessarily believing this, but this is what they said, that by 2027, 75% of the multinationals that are listed on the S&P will not exist anymore. And the latest statistics show that the corporations, multinationals, have an average lifespan of 18 years in the current environment. So it is becoming very difficult, very turbulent. We all have felt the fires of disruption and the changes of technology. Even the untouchable banks are feeling a little bit of heat, not totally yet, but you have Revolut and some of these other things popping up. So I think it is probably even becoming more difficult rather than easier to get that third generation across the line. And probably we need to see more family members becoming certified in best practices. And that's probably something Hakama can help out with. And Dr. Ashraf, maybe if we maybe encourage him a little bit, he might have a potential discount. I don't know if we'll talk about that, if we can get that going for the group members, but we'll try that our luck later. To go back to sorry, Dr. Ashraf, did you want to say anything there or no? I thought you were leaning in. No, okay. Hassan, so Hassan, I saw you're following the North American model. that we like to subscribe to, you know, the untouchable hero leader who is both board member, chairman, CEO, MD, judge, jury, sheriff in town. I was wondering if did you do that because you feel that, you know, you're going to be able to generate more revenue, more net profit by having full control of the vision and the strategy? That's what Warren Buffett feels. That's what maybe Jamie Dimon of JP Morgan feels. Of course, our friends in Germany and England feel that that's actually illegal and you shouldn't do it. So there's obviously diversity of opinion on this. I'm sure Dr. Ashraf has an opinion as well, for sure. But can you give us a little light? What's that like, and where do you see, you know, your responsibility of the board ending on vision and management team picking up, and same with strategy? Because we often place CEOs in a company, and then they're saying, well, the board's not giving me the vision. The board is saying, well, the CEO doesn't have any vision. What's your take on it as someone who is holding the realm of both worlds in the palm of his hand?
You know, frankly, I'm going to share my experience. I'm not saying my experience is the right approach or the right model. I mean, there are always lots of learning when you think back, and in hindsight, you know, if you ask me, would I have done things differently? Probably yes, I would have done things differently. But how things were at that time and why, you know, I followed this path, kind of, it just happened, you can say, or the reasons or the circumstances at that time demanded that I do that. Like before my father passed away, I joined the family business in Dubai, which is Intercore, and I didn't have much you know, experience in manufacturing, but I became passionate about manufacturing, and you know, it was more for me kind of the challenge to build the name, build the brand, and think more long term than anything else. So my commitment to the business was to build the business on a long-term basis. I had the vision to make it a global company, to, as I said, build the brand. And I wasn't looking at the short-term results. I was looking more on what is needed to, you know, to build the company, and without support, even from the head office, without, you know, any, before my father passed away, before, you know, without his support or without later the board support post him passing away. So I agree with you that being hands-on in the business gave me the ability and the authority to implement, you know, not only create the vision but also implement the vision. As I said, would I have done things differently? Probably. I mean, I probably had taken probably a step back after a few years of when the company was at a certain stage. But frankly, the main issue is that when you as an entrepreneur and as a business owner, and you represent the business and you represent the other shareholders, your expectations, your vision is usually not aligned with the expectations of the other shareholders, because their focus is on dividends and my focus on growing the company and, you know, reinvest, especially manufacturing. You always have to keep reinvesting in the business, and, you know, lots of capex, and so that's where the challenge lied, is that how to manage between the expectations of the shareholders, which is, you know, the direct shareholders, because even after we separated ways with my half brothers and half sisters in 2008, so we had become one group, which is, you know, myself, sisters and brother, and my mother, and we did not form, and we had our own board, which represents the owners, and I was hands-on, and as a managing director, I was taking the calls, you know, and making the calls. The main challenge I've seen is that when the discussion of having non-executive or non-family members in the business on the board, that was a bit a tough discussion, because either you can say shareholders wanted to be involved themselves, or wanted, for example, let's say their sons or husbands to be involved in the business, rather than, you know, allowing professionals or people who can really add value on the board to be present. So that's one challenge. And the other, as I said, is that me being hands-on, you know, every day managing operations and having the vision put me in a different perspective than the other shareholders. Like I wasn't only a shareholder looking at profit. I was also somebody who has a vested interest in where the company is going, and the fact that I would like to set up a factory in Saudi Arabia, set up a factory maybe in Egypt. So my plans and vision did not necessarily align with the objectives and expectations of the shareholders, of the other shareholders, and that's frankly it is a challenge, and it's not easy to manage this.
Sure. I don't know. Do any of our panel members want to respond to that, or okay, sure. I think Maher he was
Sure.
I think, quicker on the draw there. I think.
Okay, all right. I think correctly mentioned by Hassan, brother Hassan. What do family members? The family is really large. What do they exactly want? They want a certain paycheck come to them every month. That's what they want, to be honest with you. What I tell them is, given how big is the family, and there's not one solution all. I mean, you have to make sure that you understand the family members, the need and requirement, but overall, these are the needs. If you tell them that, this definitely wealth is yours, this money is yours, it's up to you to keep it together, to make it stronger, or actually take it off now and make it weaker, and you don't have the magnificent rolling ball for that. As long as they understand that, and as long as they're getting their paycheck, they will allow you to do whatever you want to do, as long as it is for the benefit of the entire family. So we need to keep them engaged. One of the things we realized is conflict is always going to be there. And usually the conflict will come from those who are sitting as silent on the side, because they're not updated. So if you don't update them, you don't have your regular meeting with them, you don't engage them, you don't provide them information, you're definitely going to get into a bigger conflict. And there are 20, 30 reasons why people at family businesses fail and they don't transition. The very top three, at least for our region, apart from, I've managed European region, I've seen how they are, but in our region, I put them into three acronyms called RPA. First of all is retention of power. KPMG actually did a study a few years ago, and they realized that 89% of the torch holder, I call them the torch holder, the Patrick, he always want to hold the power. So 80%, they do that thing. Also the same 80%, apparently, which is 79%, recognize the requirement of actually transitioning, but they don't transition. Only 29% transition. So retention of power is always there. They don't want to transition. When they realize they don't want to transition and they know that thing, they always procrastinate. That's the P. Because they always say, okay, I'm going to transition, which is the point you've mentioned, because they don't even come there till the bedtime comes, unfortunately, when they're needing to pass away. The third challenge that we face, at least in UAE and some of the other economies within GCC, is the availability of next generation. If you don't have the next generation ready because you don't really prepare them, then how will you transition the whole thing? So these are the key things that we need to keep, that how family and fabric of the family businesses work.
If I might just add to this, again, Mr. Maher talked about something which is very important, the idea of governance. Now, the idea of governance is not actually a common sense thing. It is really something that you have to plan for and you have to understand very well. So that's where what you mentioned about certification for directors and understanding what is an effective board of directors and how to really have this kind of board, what kind of different members we can have, what are the committees, how can we do a good job out of the board, and so on. And I think the key word that was mentioned here, especially in family business, is actually about power. And this is really the key issue. Now, Mr. Hassan was talking, for example, about, the idea of having a vision of expanding, going maybe open factories in different countries and doing this and doing that, maybe going to the US and opening factories in Egypt and different countries and so on. That's very nice. But that's not one-man decision. It's about a system. So this is really where governance comes in. So it doesn't become like one person who is a visionary leader who can make a decision and decides that let's go to this country or this continent, open a factory there. No, it's about having this idea of, okay, now we do have shareholders who have their own vision. Maybe their vision is we would like to stay in GCC countries. That's our vision. We would like to remain here, expand, but stay here. Or we would like to expand beyond the GCC countries and just, as long as we are making good money. And whatever it is, once you have a board of directors, professional board of directors, that's people who have different experiences and knowledge, who understand the vision of the family that actually brought them into this, and who convey this message to them, it is the board of directors who takes care of that idea of how to make it happen. So if our strategy is to grow in size and profits, regardless of the region, then they will implement it. If the family vision is simply let's keep ourselves in the GCC countries, they will do that. But then they will get a professional manager or a professional management in the company, and they will supervise them and they will set systems for them. So to make sure that things are kept on track. Now, why does it happen in lots of family businesses? It's about power. Because the idea of governance means that you as a shareholder, your power is just to set the direction, and you give them the power to the board, who will then make the other decisions, and then more power for the CEO to decide on how to implement that. Now, as mentioned, in many cases, the family or the founder would like to keep the power to himself, which means if you have a board, the board will take part of your power, right? If you have a CEO who is not part of the family, this CEO will take part of your power. And this is the problem. And once you continue to be one-man show, it is very risky. Number one, you might make a decision which is wrong, which will cost the entire family, if you like. And even if you don't, eventually you will not be able to manage the company. When that day comes, you don't have that second generation ready to take over and to be able to take the company to the next level. Now, we have seen some families who think of the companies as a way to employ our own children. So you see most of the grandchildren working there. Now, this is not really the best idea because my grandson might not be the best one to be the CFO of the company. And this will reduce value for us. If I have my sister or my niece to be the head of marketing, maybe she's not the best one for this job. So when I do that, in fact, what I do is I create a job for her, but then I reduce the wealth of the family, because this will negatively affect the success of the companies. Now, if we decide as a family, note, it's about wealth, we would like to grow, this means we get the best people available. They might be from the family, they might not be from the family. And that's was the idea of having a family constitution, saying, you know what, yes, a family member can work in the company, but giving that there are conditions that he or she have done certain studies, they have maybe worked in the private sector outside, they achieve certain things, and they are the best ones for the job. Otherwise, you start to ruin the companies by having this. And we have seen this a lot, by the way, happening. So the whole idea, again, I agree with Mr. Maher, is sometimes you have people who are on the dark, who are on the side, and they create problems because you don't have the information. And we have seen this a lot. We have seen some family members who are in the companies, so they have all the information. Others who are shareholders have no information, have no idea what's happening. They just get maybe a check every month or 2 months or 3 months. And they always have doubts that, you know what, maybe this money is less than what I deserve. Maybe something else is happening. Maybe it is not true, but that's the communication system as well. So again, I always say you need to have a system and people have to understand governance. And that's why in most of our courses for directors, we have family business coming to take these courses. We have usually the second and third generations coming to say, you know what, let's understand what is the idea of the board of directors. Why do we have to have good governance? What are the challenges? How to overcome this? It's a knowledge. You have to gain this knowledge to understand. And it takes only 1 or 2 people to understand who can then influence the family and how it operates. Just 1 or 2 people to understand. It will make a difference for the family itself.
That's a great point. Well, we have an actual great question from the audience here. We have a great member of the audience who is actually the first registered family office in the history of the Gulf, which was started in 1886, I think. I hope I got that right. It's W.J. Towell. So it's over 150 years old. And Mr. Anis Sultan is actually here, who's on the board of that family office. Mr. Anis, are you there? Maybe you can tell us what.
Yes, thank you.
Maybe you can give us some insight. What governance models have worked for you to allow your business to go over 150 years? You mean you're beating everybody on this metric. So we're keen to hear. And you look like you're in an amazing spot representing the beauty of Oman. I'm sure you didn't miss a beat there. So.
Yes, I always do that to remind people to visit. Thank you, Shane. I think the 3 gentlemen with you here just, dropped every single issue on family business. A quick point, I recognize very strongly the name Al Hazim. I think our family did business together at some time. I also recognize all the issues Mr. Maher mentioned. And as a 150-year company, we've done all the mistakes. And we have also gradually built up the governance structure. And as we look at our biggest mistakes, it's always a loss of governance. So you cannot really underestimate the importance of that. As cliche as it sounds, it, you know, as Dr. Ashraf mentioned, it is very commonsensical. Now, some businesses like ours, when they started, there weren't any written rules or code, but a lot of them are implicit and understood. The difficulty comes when you actually form them and structure them. And we have, I think it took us more than 100 years to board. That doesn't mean the business wasn't working, but, you know, realizing the complexity required a board. And then another 20 years to have CEOs who are not from the family. That also improved performances. And recently, we also introduced independent directors to our business. That, again, all these things does not mean there's a full or a perfect formula. It's always an evolving structure.
Yeah.
Right. Well, thank you for that. It's so exciting to have you. And I don't know if any of the panel wants to respond to Mr. Anis. Otherwise, I'll ask a question from the Ashraf.
I think Mr. Anis actually mentioned something which is very important. It is really a journey. You know, it is always a very nice sentence to say that good governance is a journey, not a destination. You cannot have it all at once. It is very gradual because it's a change of culture, right? So when you have a culture of we as a family, we own and we manage our business, that's a culture. You cannot say, you know what, the family gets out of the business completely. You get a professional CEO. It doesn't happen like this. It happens, say, let's have an advisory board. Let's have some family friends who can be advisors to us in different things. And we have them as maybe think tank or advisors or advisory board that we have. And then you say, you know, let's have a board of directors, but we are as a family, we are still the majority of the board. All this is normal. You cannot say this is bad. Again, it has to be very gradual. And the change has to be in that way because in many cases, you see some resistance from the family to give up control of the company because for us, you know, I mean, the family is the business, basically. If you say, let's separate the two of them, it's very hard. So I believe in what Mr. Anis said, it's a journey. And by the way, some people think that, you know, to have good governance, let's go public and let's list the company. It doesn't go like this. I remember very well, one of the best companies in Brazil in corporate governance was 150 years old company called Algar. It's an unlisted company. It's totally family-owned company, but they had an excellent governance structure, better even than banks listed on the stock exchange. So you can have good governance, but again, it's a journey by which you do step by step. And the key thing is awareness and education and communication between the family members.
Okay. So I'm going to go to Nurtia Sultana in a second, but here's a question from Salvador Perez. Which basically wants to know, I think this would be for Maher, Hassan, and Anis. Well, obviously, Dr. Ashraf, you would have a good insight. But they're interested to know, with the family groups, how open are you to having external independent board members who are non-family members? And obviously, you are open because Maher is one of them. So, but just interested to know what the appetite is and how open or closed is that group. Maybe
the group.
Oh, sorry.
Sure.
Maybe
sorry, sure. All right. The group is definitely open. However, we already have a good structure in place at this point of time. And as I mentioned earlier, we didn't want to make sure that we overwhelm them with everything. So we're taking the right steps. In everything we do, it's all about making sure we go step by step to make it happen. So they actually digest the information, learn through the process and move through it as well. So I think it has been a transformational journey over the last 3 years in terms of everything we've done in the business, whether it's setting up the governance, making sure every single vertical is actually aligned to that strategy we have. How do you become profitable independently as well? No commingling of funds, your expansion strategy, thinking forward as well. So I think so far the group is digesting that, but the definitely group in the future, when we further grow, will be open to that as well.
May I add something, if I may? On this, there are two components, right? One, inviting someone into your boardroom. The first element is the element of private information, secrecy. I'm afraid that's not relevant because if you have clients, if you have bankers, if you have dinners, you know, there are no secrets in small societies. But the most important part is accepting the feedback. And I think that's the cultural part. That's most important.
Thank you, thank you. So, Hassan, I don't know if you
I think, as I mentioned earlier, the problem is when either the shareholders think they can be themselves, they can represent themselves on the board, or they can add value, and they don't detach themselves from the board, or believe that this is an opportunity for their children, for example, to contribute. And that's where the reluctance is, and the pushback on appointing non-members from the family. So we haven't reached there yet. And I think also people changed. In the past, business was easy. Yeah, brother Nasib, I think my father was very close friends with his grandfather, Al Sultan. And in the past, business was done in a very easy, sitting together with a friend, you decide to open a business in Oman, in Dubai, in Abu Dhabi, whatever. There was no complications with respect to legal or trust or confidence, and everybody follows the patriarchs. Things now are getting more and more complicated. The governance issues are also complicated things further. I believe the generation. I mean, as you said earlier, second to third generation, it gets even more complex. And I believe, forget about family business at second and third generation. But right now, for example, when you look at where the millennials are and the Gen Z and whatever, they wouldn't find, let's say, our business as very attractive as a manufacturing business. The new generations want easier things to be done easier, like more, fancier stuff, whatever. So conventional businesses, even not only in our region, I think even in Europe and so on, manufacturing businesses are finding difficulties in finding and motivating the new generation, second or third, to be involved. So it's quite a complex situation, in my opinion. And that's what makes it even more and more important, as you said, to separate ownership and management. Because if there's no interest in managing the business, at least you retain your ownership, but bring the right people to manage the business. That's yesterday I mentioned to Shane and Dr. Ashraf that there's a company in Austria, 150 years old company in Austria. Even the board has no one from the family. So that's 50 family members on the company. Only one member on the supervisory board that appoints the board is involved in the business. That's it, in appointing the board. However, none of the CEOs. It's a 1.5 billion euro company, so it's not a small company. So lots of learning, I guess.
Let's let the audience get a little action here before we close. We have Mrs. Naricha Sultana, who has a question for the panel. Welcome, Mrs. Sultana. Please ask your question.
Thank you. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Yep.
You can. Okay. So thank you, Shane. I've just slightly modified my question because we have had some great information coming through. And a quick shout out to Mr. Anis. I did grow up in Oman. So yes, the country is quite beautiful. I encourage everyone to visit it. So my question for the esteemed panel is, what are some conflict management strategies when differences arise between a family member and a non-family member in your company? How does one balance generational differences, third culture influences, and ego, while at the same time pushing for professionalism and profit? Thank you.
It's a very loaded question, by the way. There isn't a magic formula. We need to realize that. And you cannot make a change overnight. So you have to go through all the learning and step by process. So if you recall, I mentioned, if you don't involve all the other members in terms of your communications and what's going on, trust me, that's exactly what you're going to achieve, a recipe for disaster. So one of the things we need to do is, how do we make sure we involve all of them? And that starts from the next generation. And I go back to something Hassan has mentioned, that that the technology is changing the shape of how business need to be there. And I was talking to Shane. One of the things that we did in UAE, we all remember, Ministry of Economy have launched their digital economy, what he called roadmap, in 2022. Now, to marry that with the family businesses, which are fabric of family businesses, how do we make sure we marry both together? And when we were sitting together and we were talking about it, I said, look, you cannot teach the patriarch of today that they actually become digital, because they've done a fantastic job in building brick and mortar businesses. For you to go digital, you have to go and address it to the next generation and speak to the next generation. So one of the things we did is we said, okay, why don't we launch a program that we need now teach the next generation on digital economy? So one of the things we thought of doing is venture studios, help them and develop the venture studios model. Now, we all heard about incubator programs, accelerator programs, and venture studios and venture capitalists. I had the benefit to work with venture studios very, very long ago, since 1993, when I joined my earlier organization, accidentally becoming a co-founder. So the venture studios model actually is 30% more successful than the normal businesses incubator and accelerator and the VCs model. So we launched the first cohort, and the first cohort actually got graduated last year in September. As we speak now, we're working to establish the second cohort, so where we invite other family businesses to come over, bring their next generation, also be part of the program. So you see what he's trying to do with this thing. My vision was, when I was telling to the Minister of Economy, Abdullah Muntog, I want to create a platform for investment platform where various family businesses can work together and co-invest. Today is very difficult to do. Yes, because everybody has a secret sauce, want to maintain and keep it to themselves, which is fine, acceptable. But when you create a platform of next generation and they're building businesses in a digital way, which has happened from the first cohort, as we speak, you had enough family businesses investing in these businesses. Now imagine this is increasing. So it is something I always try to avoid, what we use in the Western world, the Shark Tank thing. So I'm not trying to create the Shark Tank, but something similar to that, something really that which is local, which is understandable to us, to our values, to our culture. So so far we've been successful, and I think that will go on. So if you bring the next generation along with the patriarch which is there, and create that harmony over a period of time, you think will happen. But the good things about our culture, always those who are junior today have a lot of respect and will not talk to their elders, even if they disagree. All right. And it's a good thing, but also a bad thing, because that becomes very pumped up into them. And over a period of time, when the transition time happens, the burst out happens. And this is where the conflict comes up. So unless you start this thing as early on, as mentioned, or as well, you will not have then you'll have the communication. You need to make sure the communication gap is getting narrower and narrower through these meetings. So what we did, one of the things we did as well, we created a council for the next generation, just the next generation, talking about them, taking their challenges. What do they want the business to do? What they want the group to do? And we bring that into the constitution as well. And we discuss it with the board. So we now create harmony. So you have the business vertical, you've got the family vertical, and then we marry both together.
Okay, can you, sorry, Hassan, you look like you want to say something, or we're coming close on the hour. No? Anyway. So
thank you so much, Mr. Maher.
Yeah,
Pleasure.
thank you, Mrs. Sultana. So I think we're closing this panel. We have the next panel coming up. Of course, I think you can approach these gentlemen on LinkedIn. And I think Mr. Maher is very active in the community as well. And Hassan's is a retail business, so you can actually maybe catch him in one of his showrooms. And of course, Dr. Ashraf can be found at the DIFC in the swanky gate, the square. His office is right up there. And last time I was visiting Dr. Ashraf, actually Sheikh Mohammed was also visiting. So it's actually Sheikh Mohammed's idea. I think, I don't know if that's true or not, but good person to have involved with your business. That's for sure. So I just want to thank all the panelists very much. Mr. Anis is going to stay on for the next panel. And of course, I'm sure our panelists will be around in the audience to throw some pot shots at our next round of speakers. But let's give a big round of applause for Mr. Hassan Al-Hazim, Mr. Maher Al Kaabi, and Dr. Ashraf Gamal.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Obviously, everyone's muted, so we can't hear them. But that was really, really insightful. And it's really also amazing to see some of these family businesses, how long they actually last. And I think when you pair it with the metrics from the corporate world, how amazingly they actually outperform some of the world's biggest